line right now, we should have Jason Sean Bennett. I'd say, good morning, Jason, and welcome to Community Focus here on Free FM 89.0.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be on the show.
Okay, you're phoning currently from, we're speaking to you currently from Queenstown, aren't we?
Indeed, yes. Been down doing South Island and, and heading up to the Waikato. Looking forward to it. Always love being in the hemisphere.
So now, your book, Eat Less, Live Long, that's what you're coming around giving a seminar about?
It is indeed, yeah, and the book's pretty much about 4 different topics. I talk about the first part is my story, which I'll give you a little brief on in a second.
Yeah.
And then the second part is about the centenarians, which are these groups of people around the world who regularly live into their 100s. The Okinawans and Vilcabambans and Escasians and these lovely groups of people. And when we study them and look at them, we find it's not genetic.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with their genes. It's all to do with their diet, lifestyle and environment. And when you look at that as well, you realise, wow, these people are in their hundreds without high blood pressure, without heart disease, without cancer or diabetes or obesity. They're in better shape in their hundreds, literally, than we are in our 40s and 50s.
Wow. Yeah.
And you start to look at that and you realise it's not genetic.
Yeah.
You start to go, well, what do they do differently? And so in the seminar I talk about that and I cover that in the book as well. And we also go into a little bit about eating less and what does eating less mean, because it's not a starvation thing. It's just reminding us that we are actually eating more now than we ever have in history.
Yeah.
And then we get into regular intelligent fasting as well.
Yeah, now fasting's an interesting thing, so I certainly want to hit on that, but let's first of all hear a bit about your story.
Yeah, well, look, it's quite an interesting one because I was born at 7 months. My mum had toxemia when I was in the womb. So, they rushed her into hospital when they found out, pulled me out. I was a little 2-pound-9 baby, very lucky to be alive. And I developed asthma, hay fever, allergies. I caught every cold, every flu, every bug. I had bad skin problems, digestive upsets, bowel problems. I was very unwell as a young man and then as a teenager and into an adulthood. And I was on 16 shots of Ventolin every day. I was on steroid injections, Intel prevention, in and out of hospital. So I know what it's like to be really, really sick. And I got to the point at 21 after being told it was genetics and bad luck for years and years and years and just take the drugs, son. I got to the point of going, all I've got left to look at is diet, lifestyle and environment.
Yep.
So back in 1987, I started looking at food and fasting and longevity and centenarians and all the different research on it. And I started going to libraries and reading books. And over the course of about 4 years, after reading lots and lots, trying different things out, I completely cured everything. And so now I'm 46 and I haven't been sick now for 20 years. I haven't had any drugs for 20 years. I've taken no medication. I'm cured of asthma, of hay fever, of allergies, of colds, of bugs, everything. So that's pretty much what's happened is I cured myself all those years ago, and now for so many years people have asked me to write a book. They've asked me to teach them how to get well, and so now I find myself in a strange position of being a very, very sickly young man and now being well in my 40s and teaching people all over the world how to get well.
Fantastic. Now I want to know a little bit about... Yeah, I bet it is. And I'm sure there will be some who will say, not possible, can't get rid of allergies like that, or, What's your response?
I live in Auckland.
Yeah,
I live in Auckland, and Auckland's the capital of the known allergy sufferers and asthma sufferers in the world, and I've cured it myself living in Auckland the whole way through, and all I did was changing my diet. And here's the key thing that a lot of people really don't understand. And when people say, how do you do that? You say, well, look, when you start to understand that you are not your genetics, but you are a function of your genetic expression. Now, I'm not going to get too technical, so don't worry, but when you look at genetic expression, it's essentially how your genes make you all the time. So you're constantly evolving and changing. And if you use me as an example, when I was born in 1967, I was 23,688 genes. Now, here I am now at 46. I'm the same 23,688 genes. I'm the same genes, but how they're expressing themselves, which means how they make the cells in the human body, has changed. And the only way, really, that you can really dramatically influence that is your diet, your lifestyle, and your environment, because your probiotic bacteria in your gut create your genetic expression. So what you eat literally becomes you. So what I did was I ate myself well after being so sick. So when you start to understand that, and you understand your immune system is 90% in your gut, and your gut is run by your diet, and your immune system runs your respiratory system. So if your respiratory system has problems, and you transform your immune system by changing your gut and your diet, then you get a whole different relationship with breathing.
Yeah. No, that
so
does...
Actually, It's quite simple.
You talk about your environment as well, and are we talking, like I'd be thinking Auckland's a fairly polluted environment, for example, a lot of traffic and the likes. Is that the sort of environment we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the key thing is the diet. Of course, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's 60 to 70% of your longevity and health is your diet. So diet, number one. Number two is lifestyle, and we know, for instance, there's cancers that are caused by lifestyle.
Yes.
The greatest example of that, of course, is lung cancer.
Yes.
Is lung cancer genetic? We all know, no, it's not. It's nothing to do with genetics. It's to do with cigarette smoking. So we know that there's a cancer that's a great example of what we call a lifestyle cancer, which has nothing to do with genetics, completely to do with how we behave and how we choose to smoke, we choose to get lung cancer. It's a very, very black and white relationship. So what people don't understand is most other things like high blood pressure, heart disease, liver cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, all these other things that are killing us young, the painful, horrible deaths we're having, are also to do with diet, lifestyle and environment. And in terms of answering your question, the environment comes down to, for instance, if you chose to live next to a toxic nuclear waste dump, then the odds of you getting a cancer related to radiation poisoning is very high. So notice again that that's not about genetics, that's about your environment. So your question's a good one. Like, is it pollution? Is it polluted in Auckland? It is. And can you get away from that, and can you mitigate that by eating well and making sure you're breathing well and all that? You can, but it's certainly an influence on your health.
Could you give us an idea perhaps of some key sorts of things in our diet we should be consuming and maybe some key ones we shouldn't, or are we getting too much into the details of your seminar?
No, that's totally fine. No, some basics, very, very simple basics. A plant-based whole food diet. So when you look at the centenarians, and I'm much more a fan of what do these groups of people around the world who regularly live into their hundreds right now and have been studied and verified by scientists and epidemiologists and cardiologists and doctors and professors. These are the groups of people I'm more interested in. I'm less interested in whatever is the current trendy diet.
Yes.
So when you really look at, because I'm interested in longevity for people and lowering disease rates, that's my passion. So when you look at that and you look at these people and you go, what do they do that we can learn from? What are the simple things? And one of the things is most of them eat mostly plants.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, a high level of vegetarian in the diet, a high level of vegetables, lots of fruits and nuts and seeds and whole grains, things like that. Number two is high fibre in the diet. So one of the things that we've all lost is the ability to eat fibre, which is why a lot of us, we have one bowel motion a day and we think that's natural. As far as I'm concerned, that's constipated. Because we should be having 3 good bowel motions a day without struggling or straining, bursting a blood vessel on the forehead, none of that stuff. That would go easily. And of course that's a lack of fibre. And fibre is that natural substance in fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains and legumes we don't have enough of.
So it's funny you say that, because I always thought, isn't it interesting how often babies go to the toilet? And so
yes, well, exactly. That's exactly it. Babies and animals will go 3 times a day naturally. And as soon as you have a little baby, you put it on the breast for some breast milk, and it naturally goes straight away in nappies. And we've forgotten it. It's called the gastric colic reflux, and we've completely lost touch with our bowels in that sense.
Now that's interesting. So plants, plants, fibre. Any other sort of key things we should be consuming?
Yeah. So you've got plants, you've got fibre, you've got eating less overall. So eating around the 2,000 calorie mark a day. Now that doesn't particularly mean watching your calories. I mean, I don't watch my calories at all. I have no idea how many calories I eat, but I probably am around that 1,800 to 2,200 mark every day, just simply because I'm eating a high fibre plant-based diet. And when you do that, you get full.
Yes.
And of course you can't eat more than 1 or 2 apples at a time.
Exactly.
It's Mother Nature's design, so she gives you a tiny bit of sugar, and a large amount of fibre. And that's the wonderful thing about what Mother Nature does with all the wonderful food she gives us. She delivers generally food in good amounts. I
appreciate how you put that, because I get really frustrated watching people wanting to juice a whole lot of stuff. So they juice, a whole pineapple, a couple of apples, some bananas, some bits and pieces, and then actually end up consuming that whole lot in one drink. Whereas if you had tried to eat all that fruit, no, you couldn't sit there and eat all of that. So I think that's really interesting. And for me, that's something I think that we've kind of lost that sense of. And we think we're doing ourselves a favour by juicing it all and consuming it.
Yeah, look, you're totally right. And I absolutely agree. If the best way to have your sugar intake in terms of sugar is just simply through whole fruit. Not through juices, not through all these other ways, but whole fruit. Literally, you look at the centenarians, And they eat whole fruit. If you want to have a snack, they'll have an apple or two, and then they'll be full, because that's all the fibre is slowing down the absorption of that sugar, and you get a tiny amount of sugar in an apple, but a large amount of fibre and nutrition. So you're totally on the money. The only time you should ever juice, as far as I'm concerned, and you should only use vegetable juice, and this is your spinach and celery and cucumber and things like that, is when you're fasting. And it's a different state of, it's a different behaviour than your average everyday behaviour. So that's a different thing, but only on vegetable juices.
Can you give us an idea about what we shouldn't eat then?
Well, I'm not a fan of meat. Not a fan of meat at all, just simply from the research and the centenarians, they tend to eat about 4% meat every day.
Does that include fish?
Meat particularly is bad. Sorry?
Does that include fish?
No, fish, they tend to eat about 10% fish. Those centenarian groups around the world that have an island nation, they'll be eating about 10% of their intake is fish and about 90% vegetables and fruits and things like that. So fish is good as long as it's fresh and good quality. So cutting down on the meat, cutting down on the sugar, refined foods, the processed foods, the fibreless foods, things like, the worst foods in the world are your fried chickens, your pizzas, your hot dogs, your hamburgers, your pastries, that kind of thing. And when we look at, for instance, New Zealand, what do we eat here? We eat a meat-heavy, low-fibre, sugar-rich processed diet. And, what do we have the highest rates of in the world? Bowel cancer. You look at the other countries around the world like that, Slovakia and the Czech Republic and Hungary, all those countries that are eating the same diet that we're eating, they have the high levels of bowel cancer as well. And then you look at the low levels of bowel cancer in places like Japan and Okinawa and Cyprus and Greece and areas like that, and they're on a high-fibre, plant-based whole food diet. So you can literally track these diseases around the world. And bowel cancer, it's tragic because it's completely preventable. It's 97% non-genetic. So 3%, according to the World Health Organization itself, 3% is genetic. And yet we have 1,200 people a year dropping dead from this stuff. And 97% of that can be prevented just through changing of diet and things. So it's really fascinating when you look at it, because you really start to realize, wow, I'm actually heading down the path for disease most of the time, and I actually can change it. I can make change. Simple little things we do every day can make change that literally transforms your risk of dying of the things that are killing us all.
I'm going to ask the hard question, being a New Zealander. What about dairy?
Yeah, I'm not personally a fan of dairy myself. We tend to, what I tend to find is that a lot of the people we work with, and I work with hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world, a lot of the people we work with are constipated without realising it. And I found that it's pretty much literally everybody in New Zealand is constipated. And of course, what that means is we're wanting to increase our fibre. We've forgotten what it is to have good bowel motions, like you mentioned before. We've forgotten what it is to eat fibre. We've forgotten what it is to eat whole foods. So when you start to look at that and you start to rebuild people's guts, which is where I always start in people's guts. You've always got to start in the stomach and the bowel area. When you're looking at rebuilding that, the thing that runs our digestive system is fibre. Now, that doesn't mean we need to rush out and take a fibre supplement. It actually means we need to look in the backyard and go, well, what did we used to eat when we didn't have constipation problems? And, of course, it's a high-fibre diet, so that's your natural whole foods. And so when it comes to working with people who are unwell, we work with a lot of people who are unwell, we find that taking them off the fibreless foods and increasing their fibre and their naturally nutrition-rich foods does a huge amount of benefit for them. And then over time, we can then introduce for them, some of them, they can have some dairy foods again or some meat foods again or whatever it is, and they'll find that balance for themselves. It's not about being extreme or being, a complete raw vegan or anything like that. It's not about that kind of level. It's more about how do we get more vegetables and high-fibre foods in, and how do we decrease those foods that are constipating us and causing us problems, and then how do we find that balance? And that's where we work with people and teach people.
Look, thank you very much for coming along and chatting to us today. That is Jason Sean Bennett talking about Eat Less, Live Longer. So I'm loving the sound of that. Sounds pretty easy as well. Doesn't sound like it's, only lemons or something horrid like that.
No, it's wonderful. My wife and I, we eat really, really well with our family. We've raised 4 kids. I've got, a 25-year-old son, 22-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old. We raise the kids. We eat really well. We love our food, so... and Tracy teaches people on the program that as well. She's the recipe queen. She really shows you how you can turn fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains and legumes into delicious gourmet meals. And, this is not about going without. This is not about not enjoying food. Literally, we love our food.
Cool.
Food's great. It's one of the enjoyments in life. So not about restriction at all. It's about intelligence and making smart choices about those simple things that can transform your health and longevity.